Hi, I'm Bart Hanson, the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description. Last. 703? Hello? 703.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So this hand happened at MGM.
MGM Washington?
Yeah,
Okay.
DC.
Yep.
So this is 1-3.
With the, what is it, a 300 buy-in or something?
500 max, but
Oh, okay.
700 effective.
Okay.
So villain is in the small blind. He's played a pretty standard tag game. He's like mid early 20s, has glasses. Has only showed up with like value hands as far as I could tell.
Okay.
And then one more player that makes his hand relevant is the guy to my left who was MP1. He was kind of like a lag maniac who would like, if your hand was like super underrepped, he might like bomb it on the river to get you to fold, even if his line doesn't necessarily make sense.
Okay.
All right, so I'm UTG +2, and I limp Queen 10 suited. I know
Okay.
that's questionable, but let's just go with it.
You just open limped,
Um,
basically? Is that what happened?
I felt like the table was bad enough where their bets were like really transparent, where I could limp this loose and make the
I mean, I
call.
don't have a problem with that. I mean, I don't have a problem with limping suited broadways from up front in a loose, passive, low stakes, no limit
Yeah,
game
yeah,
because
it was very loose passive.
even
Like I
if
didn't expect to have to fold
yeah,
that often.
even if
So
you
raising.
even if you don't get three bet all that much, like if you're raising, like I think raising queen 10 suited in small pocket pairs is fine, like if you're only getting one or two callers. But like if you're raising and getting five or six callers and the game isn't playing all that aggressively pre-flop, then I have no problem limping there. So you limp queen 10 suited.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
then the lag player was behind MP1. Um, Small blind, the villain completes from the small blind, um, and then big blind checks.
So
So
four
five
ways.
12. Yeah, four
Okay.
ways. Um, so flop comes ace king six, two spades. Um, the ace and the six are the spades.
Okay.
So small blind leads for 10. Folds to me and I call, and then the loose player behind me calls as well. Turn is a three of spades,
Let me just
which
stop you right there. Like I would raise, I mean I know that see all hands aren't
yeah,
alike.
yeah, it's a great semi bluffing hand, but I felt that I could get a lot more value this way.
Yeah, I mean I
Um,
mean I guess if you over
just because like all my flop raises have been shown as like really nutted hands. Well, I guess I'd make them fold more often.
That's what I
If
mean. Like, I mean, you've got in a
Yeah,
limped pot, people don't like to play big pots in a limp pot. Like, they don't want to go broke in a limp pot, right? So if the small blind
right.
is leading out here, and we can dismiss the fact that he probably doesn't have ace king, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have an ace here a lot, and he's just not going to get
Yeah, I was thinking
involved.
weak aces.
Yeah,
I
he's
was
not going to
thinking a
get
lot of
involved.
weak aces for
And you
sure.
want to raise there because the thing is that the reason why raising here is a good play is because it has immediate fold equity right now. And even if he doesn't fold, it's not the worst thing in the world because you're bloating a pot in position with a nut
Right.
hand, and you can evaluate what you want to do on the turn. That's why I would raise on the flop in a limp pot.
I think a lot of it. I was thinking about the player behind me. He just like spewed off a giant amount of his stack, and he just recently bought in
Uh huh.
for another. And I was kind of hoping he'd like spew later in the hand if I happen to hit my flush and decide to like under rep it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty optimistic though. Like if you hit your flush, and I just think that I would raise anyway. So the board
But
it's
I understand that raising is the more standard better play in general.
So it's 42. We go to the turn.
Yeah, so turn is the three of spades,
All right. So you got the
completing my
second
flush.
nut flush, right?
So small blind leads for 15,
Okay.
and I interpret this as like pretty weak.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
felt like if he had a flush, he would bet a bigger sizing,
Mhm.
and again, I take a very non-standard line. I know I should just go for a big raise size, but I elect to go for a min raise
Okay.
to disguise my hand and potentially get the guy to my left to spew if he thinks I'm like one of those like top pair hands trying to see where it's at or
Mhm.
some kind of
Mhm.
two pair that hit on the turn or something.
Mhm.
Because in past hands I'd only been going big size with like strong hands. So the lag player calls, he just flats, and then it goes back to the small blind, and he raises to 80, which kind of throws me off. I really don't know what that means,
Well, the
just
problem here
because.
is, I mean, it's not a problem, but when you do non-standard sizing, are you sometimes get played back at,
That's
and
what I was
and
thinking.
it's not and it's not like, I don't think he's playing back at you as a bluff, but the question is he overplaying a hand? Meaning that, like, okay, so say he bets 15 and you decide instead of raising it to 30, you make it 100, okay? And then let's say
Right.
MP1 calls. And then, or MP1 folds, it doesn't matter. And then the small blind comes back over the top for 400. That means more, and you can actually understand the hand strength more than here, where he just thinks that you're just min raising. I mean, I would just call now. You know what I mean? Because you don't want
That's
to
what I
open
ended
your
up doing.
stack up. You don't want to open your stack up. But I'm just saying that as soon as you start to use non-standard small sizing, whether it's a bet or a min raise, you have to understand that it will sometimes make the hand harder to play because your opponent will
Right.
react with a higher bluffing frequency and also a higher overplaying frequency. So when you have a medium strength hand, now your hand is the second nuts, but when you have a non-nut hand, it can sometimes be difficult to figure out whether or not you're good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So I end up flatting,
hmm
and the loose player flats behind.
So it's interesting that MP1 is tagging along behind too, right? Like, what does he have?
Yeah, I don't. I was really confused. I was thinking he might have like a two pair, hoping to draw to a, a boat or something. It was really confusing.
Like, there aren't a lot of two pair. I mean, the only two pair that he could
Yeah,
have
like
would be
ace
like ace
three,
three.
king three, maybe 6-3 suited.
I don't know. I'm
I
trying to
wasn't
think of.
entirely
I mean,
sure.
he could have a hand like king 10 with the king of. He could have the naked king of spades. That makes sense. He overcalled the flop with middle pair and turned the nut flush draw. You know what I mean? The fact that he's overcalling is actually interesting because I think it leans him towards having the king of spades, to be honest. It might even make me feel stronger. It's interesting. It might make me feel stronger about my hand against the small blind because the hand that makes sense for the guy to my left, which is your MP1, would be king of spades. That makes a whole lot of sense. Stiff king of spades. So then you have the nuts, right? Now against small
Yeah,
blind.
if I think the guy to my left has the king of spades.
Yeah, if he does, you have got the nuts. So the pot's 282 now, if I'm doing this right, right?
Um,
You say 80
yeah,
from each
282.
player. Yeah, okay. hmm
Wait, let me think.
80
240.
from each player, right? So 240 and 42, 282.
It's like 290, something like
Okay.
that. Anyways, so
River.
river comes a 7. It's complete blank.
Okay.
Um, and then small blind leads out for 100.
So at this point, you have to start the river. You have what, about 600 in your stack? Is that right? Before
Yeah,
the and he's got about
almost
600.
exactly 600.
So he's betting 100 into 282. God, I want to make it. Listen, you got to ask yourself what kind of player you are. Like I want to make this 275 and then
I'm a thin value player. I'm a
no,
thin
I mean
value
like
player.
you got to ask yourself like are you capable of raise folding here? Like if he leads for 100, if everybody's 700 deep and you make this like 260, the question I have
Mm.
is will you fold if somebody shoves? And if you answer yes, then I think that that's what the play is. If you
All
don't
right.
want to do that, then you can just call.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was debating on calling or raising,
hmm
depending on what I thought the guy to
Because
my
I
left
because
would
that
do.
sizing. Because I gotta be honest with you, like when he three bets to 80 and then he falls up for 100, I think you have to raise here. Actually, the more I think about
That's
this,
what I felt like.
the more
It
the
just looks
small
so
blind. I
weak.
think you have the small blind beat. But remember, the MP1 could be sandbagging behind you though too. You know what I mean? Like he could have King X of spades. He's playing like a moron. But um, when somebody three bets to 80 and then they follow up with $100 bet on the river, it's just like I just think you have him beat. I gotta be honest with you, I would make it
I
like
felt exactly the same
270.
way.
Yeah.
I ended up making it 300, but before I did that, I was kind of looking to my left with my peripheral vision to
Yeah,
see.
but if you make it 300, are you
Uh,
gonna fold to 300 more though? I mean, that's my question.
uh, we'll get to that.
Okay. Uh,
Maybe. Anyways, so I was thinking about flatting to potentially get the guy to my left to call, or raise and to spew. But eventually he just like kind of sighed. I didn't think it was like a reverse tell, so I felt like he was folding no matter what. So I'm like, okay, might as well get value from the guy leading out. So I raised to 300. Guy on my left folds. He gets back to a small blind. He thinks about it for a bit and then shoves. And then I'm just in a completely gross spot. His like I know what his hand looks like. Um, but the odds are just like so crazy. I just don't know what to do.
I don't think that he's ever making that play with Jack's X of spades because your
I know
hand
that's what I
because
felt like
you can
too.
have the king high flush. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you played it
exactly. I was thinking
exactly like
about
the
that
king high
too.
flush.
Like
You
limp early and then
Yeah, I mean,
call.
you played it. I mean, you raised the turn small. He three bet you. You called. Now you're raising the river. There is no way in the world that he's coming back over the top with
Yeah, it looks
Jack
like he
X
has
of
no fold
spades.
equity.
Yeah, and again,
Um,
like I just say that you raise to an amount where you feel comfortable folding if he three bets the river. Now, if you felt like
yeah,
your pri
that's what I thought about after. I was like, maybe I should have done like 220 or
yeah,
230 or
so
250,
it
but like when it's 300,
sounds to me like you called and you had the king high flush.
yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
I mean, the clock was called on me. Like I felt like he had exactly what he had, and then at the last second, I'm like, well, maybe he's just doing it with the king of spades
No, come
because he
on,
knows that
come
I'm super.
on.
Yeah, I know,
What are you
After that, I'm
playing
like, one
one
three
three
players
or are
don't
you
do
playing
blocker plays.
1,000 2,000 in Bobby's room?
Like, yeah, one three players don't do blocker plays. Like I'm such an idiot, and I just left angry at myself.
I did, like I said,
But yeah, I mean,
I would just say that the mistake that you make is just like on the river, size it so that you're capable. So size it so that you don't have a situation where you're going to call off. Because
yeah,
if you
where I'm
raise and you're going to
I'm
call
getting
off, the play isn't as profitable, and it might even be negative. Because now you are now, if you're wrong, you're now risking 600 instead of 270. Do you see what I mean? That's where the math
yeah.
comes in. Listen, dude, I gotta
It
run
was
because
all
I gotta finish the show up, and I'm heading out. I got a
okay.
flight in 2 hours, so thanks for the call.
All right, thank you, Bart.
Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button, and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out CrushLivePoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA100. Click on the link right there.